I pointed out before that Islam is this strange topic where the less you know about it, the more of an expert you are. That means there's no other topic like this. Not like the less you know about math, the more of an expert you are in math. But when you get to Islam, and the more ignorant you are, the more you're propped up as some expert. And so, yeah, we've had all these politicians and journalists and so on telling us when we're quoting when we're quoting the Muslim sources and we're quoting Muslim scholars and stuff, and we're quoting Muhammad and we're quoting the Quran and so on. No, you guys don't know what you're talking about because I have a Muslim friend, and my Muslim friend does not and never tried to subjugate me. So how can you say Islam wants to subjugate the world when my Muslim friend has never shown the slightest inclination to subjugate me? As if Islam is defined by your Muslim friend and not by the sources that we are quoting. And it's the same thing with, with the non-Muslims, with the infidels. It's you guys do not define Islam, and none of your Muslim friends define Islam. The sources we're quoting define Islam, and they all agree with us. And the actual knowledgeable scholars, when they're speaking truthfully, agree with us. Weird situation. But you guys know best because you know nothing.
Yeah, it's like I was just writing about this. King Charles, he delivered his Christmas message the other day, and he says the different faiths they have so very much in common, and one of the things that they have in common is a strong desire for peace and a deep commitment to the equality of all people. And I thought, well, Islam doesn't teach any of that. And has Charles studied Islam? Of course he has not. He doesn't know a thing about it. It's not that he has an informed opinion based on his study. He just really wishes this were true, and so he assumes that it must be. And that's it. And this is the level we're dealing with the rulers of the Western world.
Really sad. And so, Robert, it's kind of weird. I've never actually seen an episode of the show Boardwalk Empire, but it was like the early formation of when the mafia was becoming organized and so on during Prohibition. But anyway, I've watched a ton of YouTube clips from that show, but there's this one funny situation where a guy who's guarding his job is to guard the warehouse where all the illegal liquor is being stored. And this guy goes like to the outhouse or whatever. He goes to the outhouse and someone comes in and steals a bunch of stuff. But they eventually find the guy who stole all this stuff. And then Nookie Thompson, he's like the main character, but he starts talking and he goes, "Okay, you're a thief, right?" He's talking to the guy who stole the liquor. He goes, "You're a thief, right?" And he goes, I'm not mad. I'm not mad. You're a thief. That's how you make your living. That's your job. In this situation, your job is to steal things. And he turns to the other guy, your job is to guard the warehouse. So I ask you, we've got a thief whose entire source of sustenance is to steal things, and a person who's supposed to guard what's in the warehouse. One of those people was doing his job. The other person was not. Who wasn't doing his job in this scenario? So he put more blame on the guy who's supposed to be guarding the warehouse than he did on the guy who is stealing the stuff. But matter of fact, I should make a little video out of that because it's a perfect example. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, you've got the jihadis whose job is jihad. That's what they do. That's their entire reason for existing in their mind is to do jihad, to wage jihad as they've been commanded. Part of that is sexually abusing girls and so on, taking captives and so on. The government, your police, your judges, your politicians, their job is to protect your people from those guys happening. So in this situation, who was doing their job and who wasn't doing their job? The jihadis or your government? So there's this weird situation where they're actually more blameworthy than the jihadis and the rapists themselves.
It's like Pope Leo is another one. And the other day he was saying about the jihad in Nigeria that it's really more about economic problems than about Islam. And here again, I read this and I'm thinking, Pope, really, did you read the Quran to get this idea? Has he ever
I heard it.
Yeah,
I heard it somewhere.
He heard innocent people. You kill an innocent person, it's like you've killed the whole world. He heard that somewhere, and that was it. He doesn't know anything about it, and he's just popping off based on what he wishes were true. And this is too high stakes to be playing that kind of game.
Yeah, these are bad times, guys, for people in positions of authority who have massive influence over other people. It's a bad time for people like that to be really, really stupid and to be enabling the people who do this stuff. Chapter 5, you have What Did Muhammad Do? I can guess what that's about.
Yeah, that's yeah, people wear those WWMD bracelets, and what would Muhammad do? But we have Muhammad's example. He took sex slaves himself. I tell the celebrated story in here of Safiya bint Huyai, who was the wife of Kinana of Khaybar, and he murdered had tortured
Yeah.
and murdered her husband, killed her father on the battlefield, destroyed her community, killed many of her friends and family, and then he was so taken with her that he raped her right there on the battlefield. And then the Islamic apologists say, no, he married her first. But as David pointed out just a little while ago, force is not a concept. I mean, it's not a problem here. There's no idea that you shouldn't force a woman to have sex with you. That just does not exist in Islam. There are actually specific hadiths in which Muhammad is saying a wife has to have sex with her husband at any time, no matter what, even if she's riding on the back of a camel, even if she's making dinner and it gets burnt on the stove, he has to do it. She has to go along if he wants her to. And so if you could do that with a wife, imagine how the sex slaves are.
Yep, not pretty there. So what did Muhammad do? You know what? You know what amazes me about that whole situation is, so Muhammad. You got that quote. Muhammad liked three things most, and it's perfume, women, and food. Perfume, women, and food. Those were the three things he liked most. But the Battle of Khaybar, that, according to Muslim sources, is where Zainab bint al-Harith, a Jewish woman, whose all the men in her family were just slaughtered by the Muslims, and she offers to cook a meal for Muhammad and his companions. And Muhammad's like, yeah, oh yeah, I like lamb. Yeah, bring me some lamb. And then, of course, she poisoned the lamb, and one of Muhammad's companions, Bishr, just turned green and died. But Muhammad, he consumed some of it. It did some internal damage, but he survived another few years. And then eventually he said he died from the poison. But I mean, think about this situation. So Muhammad loves perfume, women, and food. And think about that. You just slaughtered this woman's entire family. And she says, hey, let me cook dinner for you. And he's like, okay, because I like food. That's how dumb he is, right? And then he almost died. He eventually did die, according to the Muslim sources from this. But his companions see this like, how do you not conclude this guy's like the biggest idiot on the planet? But then what does he do? Oh, look, here, I just tortured and killed this woman's husband and the rest of the males in her family. Let me bang her. And then, like, one of his companions actually stands outside the tent to make sure, because this guy understands, wait a minute, this guy seems to have a blind spot when he really wants something. And so this guy stands guard because he thinks this woman's going to kill him. But I mean, imagine you're like, from the perspective of that guy, you giant idiot, you just almost died for some lamb. And now, why'd that woman want to kill you? Why'd that woman want to kill you, Muhammad? Why did she want? Because you just killed all the men in her family. Okay. And here's the woman you're taking to your tent, right? What did you just do to her? Oh, you killed all the men in her family. Do the math here. So, yeah, I mean, if Muslims wanted to make an argument, they should say it's amazing this guy survived as long as he did, as stupid as he was, because that has got to be the stupidest guy ever. Rough stuff. So that's what Muhammad did. He was extremely stupid, but pretty darn terrible towards women. All right.
So I got in the second part of that chapter, I've got, after Muhammad's example, I've got a bunch of Muslim rapists saying they're doing this because it's in the Quran, or they're doing this because it pleases Allah. And it's very clear. You know something, David? I remember years ago when Pamela Geller and I were working together. One time we put up all those ads on buses and in subways and such in New York, and
I was
they were
there.
just quotes from jihadis because CARE was doing its My Jihad campaign. You know, My Jihad is taking the kids to school on
Hmm.
time, stuff like that. So we had real quotes of jihadis, and one of them was, "My jihad is," and then it was a quote from Hamas, "Killing Jews is worship that brings us closer to Allah." And people actually claimed that we were lying about this and said that we had fabricated the quote. But it's a genuine quote from a genuine Hamas preacher. It's at the Middle East Media Research Institute memory online. You can find it. You can find it quoted and footnoted in I don't know. I'm sure I've put it in some book. But in any case, the reason why I mention it here is because it's the same thing. You're going to think, gentle viewer, that this is over the top or crazy, but David will tell you this is true. If you think about all of the beliefs of Islam, raping an infidel woman is an act of worship. It is a holy act that Allah likes because and blesses because he told them to do it. And also think about what's heaven but a big bordello. Islamic paradise is just having sex all day. And so you have sex. This is something that is like the highest of human experiences. And you're doing it in a way that shows that Islam is dominant and victorious and superior and that Allah has defeated the infidels. What better worship of Allah is can there be than that? And so, just like killing Jews is worship, like the Hamas guy said, so also raping infidel women is worship. I've got a lot of quotes from Islamic rapists who are saying that. I have one who said pretty much that, actually. I don't know if I can find it in the book real fast. But anyway, the quotes are all here. During the, like, one lady says, when he raped me, he repeatedly said, cited Allah, the Quran, and Mecca. Um, in the name of Allah, I swear to you on the Quran of Mecca, and so on. That this is something that Allah was blessing. Or they would hand them Quran, their victims. They would rape the victims and then give them a Quran. It was either worship or dawah.
Hmm. And
Oh, here we
those,
go. He told me that according to Islam, he's allowed to rape an unbeliever. He said that by raping me, he's drawing closer to God. There you go.
sounds about right. Those were I lived in New York. I lived in the Bronx when that whole controversy was going on. So, guys, there was it's basically you had Muslim organizations. They had their big "Why Islam" campaign. They're posting stuff everywhere, but then they were posting stuff about Israel and so on. And so they're posting basically. Hamas is the good guys and so on. But anyway, you had these ads running. And so then Pamela and Robert demanded that their ads be posted as well. And they refused. And then, if I recall, it went to court or something like that. And they were forced to, because I remembered all of a sudden I would see them. So I used to ride the subway, but you guys' ads were actually in there. They're all over the place and
Mm-hmm.
so on. And then they actually had to change their rules because they were forced, hey, to be consistent, if you're posting stuff from this side, you have to be able to post it from that side. So then they just made it, okay, no kinds of political ads anymore. And so they had to change the rule.
I remember the another campaign we had was people who have left Islam, and we had the pictures of girls who were honor killed and people who had left Islam. And we had a website in those days, leaveislamsafely.com, that offered resources to people like in Rifka Barry's situation who wanted to escape and didn't have anywhere to go. And we actually had a safe house at one time and all kinds of things. And I remember standing on the street in Manhattan one day, and I saw one of these cabs go by. And of course, the cab drivers in those days were all Muslim. And so he had the ad on the car, leave Islam safely, but he'd scratched out the leave. So it just said islamsafely.com.
Nice.
And I thought, oh, okay, score one for you, Cabby. You win that.
Yeah.
You win this round.
That was good. That's a good one. Got to respect that. Got to respect that. All right. So, chapters 6 and 7, you have a long history of abuse and so many horror stories.
Yeah, and this is out of Islamic history. So here again, like we were talking about the history of jihad before, this is some stories from throughout Islamic history of how Muslims would conquer and take sex slaves. And this was just a matter of course. This is how Islamic armies wage war. And so this is what they did. And why should we expect that in the modern age it's going to be different? And it isn't.
Chapter 8, we have the real problem. What would the real problem be?
Well, chapter 7 gets us to modern day Britain.
Oh, okay.
I
So
did
many horror
want to
stories.
note
Okay.
that first. Yeah, the so many horror stories is modern day. Chapter 6 is history. And so chapter 7 tells some of the stories, terrible stories out of Britain. You just wouldn't believe it, really, unless you've heard about them. Like this girl made into kebabs in a kebab shop.
I remember that one.
And nobody's ever been brought to justice for that. There were a couple of guys tried, and they were released, and nobody's ever paid any penalty for that at all.
Well,
And
kind of hard to punish someone if the victim ended up as kebabs and you don't have the victim anymore.
yeah, and so you have people around her, you have her family, but then everybody is so afraid of talking about what this problem is, and this is why it is intractable. And this is where we get what we get to in where is it now?
Chapter 8, the real problem.
Yeah. In chapter 8, we start getting these British politicians who are afraid, or the police who are afraid to deal with it. And so they let it happen. And I've got Jack Straw, who was the Home Secretary way back in 1997 to 2001, and then Foreign Secretary after that until 2006. And he, like Sarah Champion, but 10, 15 years earlier, said this is a Pakistani problem. And they crawled all over him, attacked him everywhere. He had to apologize and retract. It's all Islamophobia. And see, it's this whole Islamophobia nonsense that allowed this to happen. That the leftist groups in Britain, Hope Not Hate, Tell Mama, they spread the idea that people like Tommy Robinson, and others who were calling attention to this were the real problem because they were racists and Islamophobes and so on. And so they made it into a problem of white supremacy and racism, and diverted attention away from the rape gangs, obfuscated and lied about who the rapists were. And they're the ones that made this happen. The rapists just took advantage of a situation. If they had been stopped, they would have been stopped. If they'd been deported, they would have. There would be no problem. It would have been solved long ago.
It is this amazing situation where no matter what these guys do, they end up as the victims. So they can actually go around grooming, raping, gang raping, drugging, pimping a bunch of 12-year-old girls. And when it eventually gets exposed, they're the victims of white supremacists who are attacking their religion. Absolutely, absolutely insane. So chapter 8 was the real problem. Then chapter 9, we've got a veritable industry. What's the industry here?
Well, it's astonishing. There's one town, Rotherham, which between 1997 and 2013, there were 1,400 victims. Now, that's one town. There are hundreds of towns in Britain, and this is why people say that there could be as many as 1 million victims. And there were studies that showed that it was overwhelmingly a Muslim situation, and that it was people who were involved. If it wasn't Muslims doing it, then it was people who were close to Muslims running around in the Muslim community and doing what they did. And yet the report was buried and the whole thing went on. The report that I'm talking about in chapter 9 is from 2014. The J report, it said that this was all about Pakistanis, didn't dare to say Muslims, didn't come close to the ideology, but still it showed honestly who the people were who were doing it. And it all just got covered up in concerns about Islamophobia.
Now, chapter 10, you have enter Elon Musk. I assume you don't mean in the Zut sense.
Nah, I do not. I have Elon in there because he's the one really, David, Tommy's been talking about this for years. I've been talking about this for years. Other people have been talking about this for years. But the establishment media has been determined to cover it up and ignore it. Everybody in the British establishment has been determined to cover it up and ignore it. So Elon, he has an awfully big platform. He started talking about it last summer, and suddenly everything started to change. And even the Labour government of Starmer agreed to, ultimately, after initially rejecting the idea that it would hold an inquiry, it agreed to hold a national inquiry on this issue, although it looks like it's going to be yet another cover-up. But Elon Musk really, he shows the power that one individual can have and why we should all not lose hope. We may not have the kind of platform Elon has, but Elon Musk didn't learn about this from nothing. He's no doubt seen some of the work that we've done. And
I've seen him share your tweets before in the past.
There you go. So this is a call to all of us, really, to persevere. But anyway, in this chapter, I show how he brought pressure on the British government, and the British government actually just a little bit started to move on this.
And so multiple cool things that Elon did because Twitter, I mean, there's obviously still things that really suck about Twitter, or X now, but way worse back in the day. Muslims could be calling for all sorts of screwed up, messed up stuff, and we just responded to it, and we would get banned and so on. I think it had Elon just going in there and just buying the platform. I think that had ripple effects because YouTube. I'm not on Facebook, but I hear Facebook is way better now. But on YouTube messes with me far, far, far. In fact, they don't mess with me at all anymore compared to, years ago where it was just relentless. Everything I posted, they would come after me on. So anyway, it's pretty cool. And it is cool that, that we can be bringing things up for years, and all of a sudden you get someone with just a huge platform and he can shine a massive spotlight on it, and then it all gets exposed. So guys, this is kind of what I'm talking about with things becoming common knowledge. It's things become common knowledge and we're all pointing it out. Guess what? There are going to be people with, big megaphones who finally catch on and can shout it to the rest of the world.